Hello again, and welcome back to Analyzing Literature. Today we're going to talk about figurative language. Figurative language is language that is not meant to be taken literally. There's all kinds of figurative language. Figurative language is actually kind of an umbrella term that encompasses various literary techniques. For example, metaphors are examples of figurative language. Because if you say that a linebacker is a Mack truck on the football field, you're not trying to be taken literally. It's a figure of speech. It's figurative language. By the same token, if you tell your beloved that her eyes shine like stars, you're not being literal. You're not saying they literally shine like stars. It's figurative language. It's a simile, but it's also figurative language. Likewise, if I am watching a basketball game and I say, that was the worst pass in the history of Western civilization, that would be a hyperbole. I'm also not trying to be taken literally. I'm exaggerating for effect, right? So it's figurative language. Another example is personification. If I say, the wind sighed through the trees, wind doesn't actually sigh. I'm not trying to be taken literally, but it's personification. So personification is another form of figurative language. There are also things called idioms, which are phrases that we all say, and we know what they mean, but we rarely stop to think about them, like the phrase, "It's raining cats and dogs." That's figurative language, it's not literal. Or if a teacher tells a student to zip your lip, that is also figurative language. I'm not actually asking a student to take a zipper out and zip their lips up. So figurative language is something to pay attention to because authors often use figurative language to communicate feelings less than information. Figurative language is good for communicating a feeling. And so when that feeling is more abstract and they need to get to it through some less direct way, they'll use figurative language. Here's an example from To Kill a Mockingbird. This is a scene in which Scout is overhearing a conversation between Aunt Alexandra and Atticus, and she realizes that Alexandra is telling Atticus that he's got to get Scout under control. And to Scout, that means that Aunt Alexandra says Scout needs to start acting more like a girl. And so Harper Lee writes, "I felt the starched walls of a pink cotton penitentiary closing in on me." Now, penitentiary is a prison, but she's not literally feeling a pink cotton prison closing in on her. It's figurative language. So when you're reading your books, keep your radar on for phrases that are not meant to be taken literally, because they can communicate an idea sometimes better than it would be if it was more direct. For instance, if this just said, I felt like I would have to start wearing dresses, it wouldn't have the same poetic resonance that this pink cotton penitentiary phrase has. It wouldn't communicate the feeling as well. So authors use figurative language to communicate feelings that wouldn't be as effective if they just said directly what they were saying. They take a little poetic angle. So pay attention in your books to when the author takes a poetic angle on something, because they're probably doing it for a reason. Here is my reader's notebook response on figurative language. It says, Aunt Alexandra's arrival changes the dynamic of the Finch household, and Harper Lee uses figurative language to communicate Scout's fears to the reader. As Scout eavesdrops on a conversation between Atticus and Alexandra, she can foresee how her life would change if her aunt gets her way. Scout, the ultimate tomboy, felt the starched walls of a pink cotton penitentiary closing in on her. Page 182. Lee uses this metaphor to illustrate how confined Scout would feel if forced into the feminine world of her aunt. She wouldn't literally be in a pink prison, but that's how she would feel. Not only that, but the walls would be starched, which is something done to fabric to make it stiff and uncomfortable, which is just how Scout would feel if forced into dresses and tea parties. So I labeled and dated it. I don't summarize, I analyze the phrase. I'm not just saying what was happening, I'm actually getting into what this phrase means and how Scout is thinking about this. I have a quote, and it's 5 sentences, not counting the quote. When you're attacking figurative language, it's up to you to not just repeat it, but dig into it, get underneath the surface. And if you can identify what kind of figurative language it is, that's good too. Sometimes it's hard, but if you can tell me whether it's a simile or a metaphor or a personification or whatever, then do so. But the key is to get underneath the surface. Don't just repeat the figurative language, but explain what Harper Lee's intentions were in using that phrase. What is she trying to tell the reader? Go forth, see if you can find some figurative language in your book. Just keep your radar up, that's the key. Lindemann out.